Hi, everyone. Welcome to our PASS open call info session. We are excited to be here today to talk through the application and get you familiar with the process and hopefully get you started on your own application to submit. Captioning is available. If you're accessing Zoom from a computer, click the CC or live transcript button, which may hide under the More feature. You may have to then click Show Subtitle. You can then click and drag captions to reposition them. And if you're accessing Zoom on a mobile device, go to Settings, then Meetings, then toggle Closed Captioning on. If you have questions or need tech support, please send us a direct message on Zoom. This program will be reposted later on our YouTube channel. And so we'll spread the word, we'll share this out in a follow-up email to all attendees, and you'll have access to this as a resource as you're working on your application. I'd like to take a moment just to thank the Howard Gilman Foundation, who is the lead supporter of PASS, and our other supporters, the Samuel I. Newhouse Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the CUNY Dance Initiative, which Snug Harbor is a proud partner. And so I'm just going to take a moment to introduce the team. I'll start with myself. My name is Melissa West. I'm the Vice President of Curation for the Visual and Performing Arts here at Snug Harbor. I have been with Snug Harbor since 2015, and I actually had the privilege of working on PASS as it was just developing in partnership with Gabby Krista, who was the then artistic director of Snug Harbor. And so I've really seen this program grow from the very early stages, and it's evolved in a really exciting way. And so I'm really excited to talk about the program today, and I'd like to pass the mic to Shauna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shauna Salmon. I'm the Arts Production and Gallery Manager here at Snug Harbor. I've worked at Snug Harbor for the past 5, almost 6 years, and I've kind of been with the PASS program, which is actually one of my favorite programs that we offer, kind of just along the ride ever since I started in 2016. Yeah.
And so Shauna and I work together to make PASS run, to support the artists that are part of the program, to facilitate community engagement, and to just continue developing the cultural and artistic production across our 83-acre campus. So I'm going to hop over to our presentation, and please, along the way, if you have questions relevant to the PASS open call application, please feel free to use the Q&A box, most likely located at the bottom of your screen. And we'll carve out some time at the end for answering some of the questions that we have. So I want to start with a background about Snug Harbor. I know some of you might be familiar with Snug Harbor, but there's a really interesting and exciting history that we love to share with the community. Snug Harbor was founded in 1801 by Sir Robert Richard Randall, who was from a privateering family and actually had a lot of kind of very well-known friends. Alexander Hamilton was one of the folks that worked very closely with him as he was developing the estate. The Trust for Sailors Snug Harbor was founded in 1801, and the doors of the campus opened in 1833. So we're going back 2 centuries, and the focus of the campus, the Trust for Sailors Snug Harbor, the organization that basically put all of this together, was really to provide respite and resources to retired sailors. It was considered a rest home at the end of their careers, and sailors from across the world were able to come and often didn't have a home necessarily to return to at the end of their professional life. And this kind of served as a snug harbor, a literal safe haven for those who had worked in very treacherous conditions for their entire careers. And they were able to live out their lives with dignity and with access to healthcare and resources on the North Shore of Staten Island, where we are currently located. The grounds are currently 83 acres. We have historic buildings that are landmarked on both the citywide and national levels. And the sort of interesting thing about Sailor's Snug Harbor is that it was really ahead of its time in providing care and resources to what could have been considered a disenfranchised population. Sailors were often kind of, you know, nomads, kind of wandering. We spent their lives, as I said, in very dangerous conditions on the high seas. And they had a lot of chronic illness, and a lot of them, you know, just didn't necessarily have social safety nets in place. And so they were able to come to Snug Harbor to live in really dignified conditions, and they were able to access recreation and kind of a holistic approach to just kind of living in an intentional community. And there, at its height, there were over 1,000 sailors that lived here. And they were able to really kind of become very ingrained in the Staten Island community. And a lot of Staten Islanders actually to this day remember what they called the Snugs, who lived and kind of, you know, inhabited the grounds and around the Livingston community on Staten Island. So it's a very interesting history. If you're interested in the maritime and kind of historical aspects of Snug Harbor, I encourage you to check out the Noble Maritime Collection, which is located on our campus grounds, and the SUNY Maritime Archives, which are located up by, I think, in Westchester. So those are two resources if you're interested in kind of diving deeper into the history. And as a sort of segue, the 20th century was a very interesting time, especially the early 20th century, and the impact of the Great Recession, the Great Depression, and the kind of shifts in social safety nets and the advent of Social Security. There were a lot of changes that happened that kind of really put a strain on the Trust for Sailors Snug Harbor's ability to maintain such a large campus. Originally, it was double the size than it currently is today. And so there was a struggle to maintain the buildings. As you can see in this picture, the buildings are quite large, and you know, they were starting to fall into disrepair. And so there was a struggle to keep the sort of property functioning as it should have. And in the mid 1960s, the buildings were starting to be sold off to private developers, and there were parcels of land being sold off. And what could have been a very sort of tragic story of kind of knocking buildings down and building high-rise condominiums was disrupted by the activism of the local community, alongside national voices, including Jackie Kennedy Onassis and Brooke Astor. And this was right around the time of the Penn Station being demolished, the original Penn Station. And there was a big movement in New York City to preserve historical buildings and assets. And Snug Harbor was actually one of the first buildings to be, or properties to be landmarked by the newly formed New York City Landmarks Commission. And that kind of set us on a path toward adaptive reuse and reclaiming these buildings and this space as a space for community and a space ultimately for arts and culture to thrive. And since the 1970s, we've served as a cultural space for artists, for creative entrepreneurs. We have several museums and galleries on the site, including the Children's Museum, the Noble Maritime Collection, the Staten Island Museum. We have world-class botanical gardens, including the New York Chinese Scholars Garden. We have 10 acres of wetlands. a 2.5-acre farm. And so there's a lot going on, and we kind of see ourselves as a cultural anchor for the borough of Staten Island, and really kind of steward the historical facets of the campus with the intrigue and kind of creativity and the ability to reimagine the site through the work of artists. And so it's really quite a spectacular place to be. This photo here is of the Kinesis Project Dance Theater. They were a pass artist in 2019. Melissa Riker is the choreographer, and these were the dancers, and they danced in Shinbone Alley, which is this beautiful kind of pedestrian pathway located toward the center of campus. And in the background, you can see a sculpture by Tat Fu Tan, and you can see the buildings, which are the Newhouse part of the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art, and then part of the what we call Building H, which consists of the Staten Island Museum archives and offices, Art Lab, which is a school for professional fine art studies. And on the second floor, we have long-term studio artists working primarily in the visual arts. We also have studio artists that are in one of the other buildings that are primarily musicians. And there's a lot of different ways that artists can activate the site. And so this is just one example of that. So I'm going to continue on and move through our artistic vision. I think it's great as you're thinking through your application to just understand where we're coming from and how we view arts and culture as integral to Snug Harbor. And so our artistic vision is to be a springboard for artists and artistry that is bold and unexpected, which reflects and celebrates the vibrant diversity of Staten Island. And through the collaborative and interdisciplinary connections of the historical, cultural, and environmental aspects of our campus, we're able to reach different communities and kind of use our grounds as a resource and a platform for artists living and working in New York City primarily, but we also at times work with international artists and regional artists. And of course, we really take considerable pride in centering the voices of Staten Island artists. So I'm going to hop into an explanation of what PASS is. PASS stands for Performing Arts Salon Saturdays. And this is a performing arts residency program that takes place at Snug Harbor. The focus is on the creation and development of new original works in the live arts. And so the primary buckets that we consider to be live arts are dance, music, theater, and just a more broad bucket for multidisciplinary performance. We know that artists work between media quite often, so these are just guidelines for how we're thinking about live performance. And if you don't see your discipline represented here, but you are engaging in an embodied practice of some kind, there is a space for you to identify what that is in your application. So we launched PASS as a program in 2015. It was established by Gabri Krista, who is a dancer and a choreographer and a filmmaker based on Staten Island. And Gabri has done a lot of different work in the field, worked with Bill T. Jones, has gone to teach in many different colleges and universities. Gabri is currently at Barnard College, where she's a professor in the dance department. And we were really blessed to have Gabri's vision as a part of Snug Harbor's ecosystem. And Gabri really saw an opportunity to center performing artists. We have dance studios and a lot of really exciting spaces for artists to explore. And she really kind of charted the path of this program to invite artists in to live and work on campus and to receive the financial and curatorial support that is needed to get your ideas off the ground. And so we've worked with artists across the performing arts field and I should say across their professional trajectories. So we work a lot with emerging artists. but we've also worked with mid-career and established artists. And this program does not have a limitation in that. We really want to hear from artists who are developing exciting projects and who can value and benefit from Snug Harbor's resources and also contribute back to our community by engaging in their artistic practice. So it's open to artists from across the spectrum of how long you've been working and where you are working within the field. And we launched so originally it was an invitation only program as we kind of built it and got it off the ground. And in 2019, with the support of the Howard Gilman Foundation, we were able to shift to an open call format. And that's where we are today. We launched the first open call in early 2020, right before the pandemic, and actually closed that first round on like March 13th of 2020. So we had to obviously adapt, and the program was dealing with all of the uncertainties that everyone was going through during that early phase of the pandemic. And we were able to provide support and curatorial resources to the artists that we selected over really the course of the last 2 years. And we have just now been able to we're finally closing out that last cohort of past artists. And so we are very excited to have this open call launch this spring. And we'll be selecting 4 projects through this open call process. So it's pretty competitive. We don't have too many spots to offer just because, we're a small team. We have we're still dealing with somewhat of a backlog in the artists that we have been supporting through COVID. And so this is exciting, but it's also competitive. So we're going to use today to kind of talk through your application, answer any questions, and hopefully make it the best proposal that you can submit. So the program objectives for PASS are to develop the space and support for artists at different stages in their career to develop and deepen their work. So again, we're looking at this is a space for process and growth and development of your ideas. It is not for finished products. This is not a kind of late stage residency. This is really for if you are at the early stages of an idea or you've been working on an idea and you kind of need something to get you to the next step. This is a great opportunity for you. We also have the goal of incubating discourse and community engagement around new ideas and artistic expression. So we want this to be a space for bold ideas, for artists who are taking risks creatively, who have something really of value to say within our community. We are going through such tumultuous times locally and globally. And so, some of the work that we do provide space for is socially engaged. That's not a requirement, but that is, very much the sort of way that we're working. And so if you have a bold idea that you have, really feel passionate about getting out into the world and you're working through live performance, we want you to be able to go beyond the sort of space of your work and engage with the community. How are you trying to advance social conversations? Is that a part of your process? Those are things that we look for in your application. And like I said, taking creative risk, that this is a supportive space for that. So it's very process oriented, and we want to be able to propel you forward in your vision and your practice. So the open call is currently live. The deadline for submissions is 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. It should say PM on this screen, on March 18th. So we have just under a month left, and the application is available on our website, and the website will link you to a Google form, which is where the application is live. So this will be through Google Forms. And I recommend if you are able to work in a separate space, whether that's on Google Docs or on Word or some other, kind of word processing space. So that way you can kind of work through your responses, and then when they're ready, you can plug them into the Google form. Just so it's totally transparent, the residency is set up as a 4-week residency. So it's really a 1-month experience where you have access to live workspace, and we'll go through the spaces in just a short while. And you're able to work during that time in an intensive way. We have had to adapt in terms of the structure of that format through the COVID era that we're in. And so there is some flexibility around that, but on the whole, we're thinking of these as 4-week residencies where you're able to live in the cottage, access the workspaces that we have. And at the end of that month, you're sharing out a public performance that is a work in progress, and that there's a community conversation around that. I will say that though that's the format, we do give a generous amount of studio time in the dance studios and other spaces. And so, once the artists are selected, we can start to accommodate rehearsal time, even before you get in for your 4-week residency. So there's room around that as you're working to be using and accessing our spaces throughout the residency period. And we anticipate that residencies will start in September of 2022, and we'll be scheduling them throughout June 2023. So that's one of the questions on the application, where it asks you to highlight what your availability is through the next year, knowing that that might change a little bit, but we want to try to, think about that as we're selecting artists, and like where is their availability and how does that match with what can be offered through the program. I want to just highlight a note for dancers and choreographers. We will be participating in a separate open call that will open soon with the CUNY Dance Initiative. This program partners with the CUNY Dance Initiative to select one additional artist beyond the scope of what we're talking about today, to be in partnership with the CUNY Dance Initiative and College of Staten Island. So that will function as a separate open call. If you are a dancer or choreographer that's submitting a proposal, you're welcome to submit to the current open call that we have now, as well as the CUNY Dance Initiative open call. It's always, if you are able to accommodate both applications, go for it. If we're not able to move forward with your project through this process, there might be room for the CUNY Dance Initiative. And so I just encourage you, if you're a dancer or choreographer, to just be on the lookout for the CUNY Dance Initiative open call, which will go live soon. Talking about the award, each artist that we select will get $1,500 to go toward your residency and performance project. So it's a nominal fee that we give to you to, hopefully be able to pay collaborators that you're working with, or if you're thinking about investing in some costumes, or there's a particular media component that you want to work with. The goal is to have some resources. We recognize that it's a small stipend, but this is a work in process opportunity. And so we're hoping that this will help you kind of have some dedicated funds to put toward your project and your vision. We also provide photo and video documentation. We have a roster of videographers and photographers who are reflective of the citywide dance and performance community. So they understand what specific live performance photography and videography really entail. And so we bring them in usually at the close of the residency to film either the live public presentation or the dress rehearsal. We also provide up to 100 hours of rehearsal time in the dance center, which is always kind of available on a first come, first serve basis. So for artists who are selected, we'll work through your schedule, your availability, and try to get dates on the calendar as soon as we're able to, just because we do have other community classes and renters and other resident artists coming through the space. The Dance Center is not it's not an exclusive space. First come, first serve availability, but we try to work with you well enough in advance to get those dates on the calendar. 100 hours is, it's a good deal of time, and it's not a requirement. You don't have to do 100 hours, but if you want to be kind of really focused and work from 9 to 5 for 4 weeks straight, that will give you the opportunity to kind of max out that resource. And not all of the artists that we work with want to work in the dance studios, so we do have some limited availability in the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art, which is our art gallery. And some of the artists that we've worked with in the past want to develop their project in the cottage or outside, and those are options as well. And then each of the selected artists will receive 1 month exclusive access to a private residence located on Snug Harbor's campus. We currently have 2 cottages that we activate for residencies, and they are fully furnished. They are, kind of ready to move in, and Shauna will talk through and share some images of the space in just a few minutes. And then, like I said, at the end, there's a public performance opportunity, and that's really a chance for you to share your ideas with the community and to get it out there. And in a low tech, low pressure format, it's an opportunity for you to share where you are in this stage of your process. It's not a final product, so you don't have to, worry about having every piece of the details squared away. This is really a space of a laboratory and incubator to test out your ideas. Eligibility. This call is free and open to all New York City-based artists. How we are defining New York City-based artists are artists living and working in New York City, artists who do not live in New York City, but have a consistent presence or connection to working and sharing work in the city are welcome to apply as well. And we're identifying this as the New York City metropolitan area. So beyond the 5 boroughs, if you live and or work in the tri-state area, essentially, you are welcome to apply. We do want to see a connection or an active participation in the New York City arts community. So even if you don't live here, but you've been participating in other, opportunities, or you've shared your work, even if that's sharing your work at like a showcase or something that's not super formal, we do want to see that there is a connection to being a part of the New York City arts community. And then I'll also just say that you are responsible for your own transportation. We do have living accommodations, which is pretty rare in residency opportunities in New York City, so that's kind of a plus. But you are responsible for getting here if you don't live in the city. Artists must be 18 or over to apply. So this is not a, kind of youth-oriented residency program, and the applicant must be 18 or over. As well as if you are in a college or university degree program between August 1st and June 30th of 2023, you are not eligible to apply. So that's something, if you're in school and you're going to be graduated by August 1st, or you are thinking about going back to school, just something to consider as you're applying. That's the sort of like window of time that you would be ineligible for this award. And then finally, if you are a previous past artist, we love you, but we want to give space for new artists to be a part of this and to get the resources that this program provides. And so we will ask you to sit out this experience, but please definitely share the word with everyone you know, so that way we can create space for new voices. If you are a selected artist, these are the requirements that you will be asked to agree upon. Working on site during the agreed upon residency timeframe. So again, like using our spaces and being an active presence on site will be a kind of important part of this experience. Meeting and communicating with arts staff on project development. So we'll have a schedule of check-ins with Shauna and myself to go through your tech and production needs, to go through your vision and provide curatorial input, to just discuss how things are going. Shauna and I are here. We are your support team. We are your rallying, force. And so we want you to feel like you're, kind of really guided and supported in this process. So we do ask that we kind of commit to periodic check-ins throughout the experience. And then the other requirement is to share your work. Part of this is to have a community discourse, right? And so that includes providing an opportunity for people to come into the process and see what it looks like, to experience that, to ask questions. And so we typically schedule a culminating performance at the end. And there is a Q&A or talkback session immediately following the performance. And that's really an opportunity for you to see how this landed at this stage in the process. How have folks responded to your work? Did you get your message across? Are there questions that you have from the audience in terms of how they're seeing or connecting with your work? And so this is an opportunity for there to be a community discussion and conversation. I will also add that there have been artists that want to go a little bit deeper than that and maybe offer a masterclass or an open rehearsal or some other kind of engagement. That is not a requirement of this program, but we're certainly open to encouraging that and want this to be a space for you to get the most out of the experience. And we've also had other opportunities to bring our residency artists into conversations with our Youth Matters program and other programming across the grounds. So we do try to kind of, make this to be a cohesive and community oriented experience for you. That's not for every artist and not for every project. Some projects you really kind of just want to dive into that sort of like solo space. And if you are on board with having a public share out of that and having a brief community conversation during that event, then go for it. If you're kind of just looking for research and development and really are not ready to share this in some shape or form with the community, I would say maybe consider applying for this in the future. And then at the end, we ask all of our artists to fill out an exit survey. It's a Google form. It's just an opportunity for us to learn how your experience went. What do you need as an artist to continue doing your work? And just to really learn about what your journey was in residence. And so that's at the end. It usually takes about 15 to 20 minutes to fill out. You have a couple of weeks to fill that out from the end of your residency until we close out the entire project. And that's something that really gives us valuable information to make changes and make things better and keep working. This is all an iterative process. And so that's part of your contribution to us is sharing how it went and how we can make it better. The criteria. So this is what we're thinking about when we're selecting successful applications. Making sure that you have a strong and clear narrative. That's 40% of how the selection panel will review your work, is seeing, were you clear in what your project goals are? What is the vision for your residency? Are you able to articulate that you would be working and understand how, this is a low tech kind of process oriented opportunity? Does that work for what you need? And so if you're able to communicate what your project is, what your resources are, what you need to make this really happen, that's all part of the narrative. The application has some short and long form answers. We can talk a little bit more about that. If there's a particular question that you really want to dive into, feel free to plop it into the chat. and or to the Q&A box. And we'll kind of maybe gloss over a couple of those, but they're, for the most part, very straightforward, kind of telling us where you are, what your contact information is, what your project looks like, who are your collaborators, and what do you need to make this work? And also kind of diving into some of your availability for the next year, as we're hoping to, kind of plan, try to make those decisions as we're reviewing applications. So the application is live, like I said, on Google Forms, and you can access that through our website. If you have any questions about specific questions in the application, please feel free to reach out today during this presentation or to email us later. The other big part of the criteria is your artistic merit. So what do we mean by artistic merit? We really want to see a compelling vision, and we want to be able to see that play out in your work sample. There are some very talented artists who can write very well about their work, but how that translates into action is always kind of an interesting process, right? And so we want to be able to see through your work samples what that looks like. There's so many different ways of approaching a lot of the conceptual and sort of social ideas that we work through as artists. And so we just want to get a sense of what is the tangible look of that? What do we feel from that? And so when you're working on a work sample, I want to encourage you to show your best work, to show work that kind of, even if it doesn't directly speak to this project idea, can kind of show a thread that connects us. And if you're a solo artist and you're making a jump into a group project, try to maybe see if there's an example of you working with other people in the past. If you are, kind of focusing in on a solo project, maybe show us some of your solo work. You have the opportunity to select 2 work samples, and we want to make sure that those are the best that of your representative of your best work. And so I would recommend looking through your portfolio, trying to figure out if you have a long dance performance or a long musical composition, let's see it in action. Pick out the more climactic parts. I think there's only like a 2-minute viewing point for each work sample, so you want to pick the moment in the sample that really kind of demonstrates your unique vision, your unique voice. If you have questions on the work sample, feel free to type them into the chat or the Q&A. But we want to select work that is bold and visionary and really has something to say and is doing that in a unique way. And so those are going to be the standout applications that we look for. And then the other part of the criteria is site responsiveness. Snug Harbor is a place-based organization. We are on a very unique campus. We are working with so many different ecosystems within our grounds. We have galleries, we have dance studios, we have outdoor spaces, we have an outdoor stage, we have gardens that are really unique and have ecological significance. We have wetlands, we have a farm. So there are a lot of different areas that you can work in. It's not required that your work is site specific, but it is something we're thinking about, and we want to see you connect back to your goals. How does Snug Harbor as a site, how is this the place that, or why is this the place that you want to develop your work? What is it about the connection to our community on Staten Island, or to the waterfront, or to the particular, on campus spaces? Like, how is that going to shape your residency? And we want you to be able to articulate that. So there is a question in the application that asks you, why is Snug Harbor an ideal venue to develop and explore your work? So again, even if that's not the final output of like, okay, this is a site specific work, it's happening in a garden or it's outside, or, you know, it's meant to be site responsive, even if that's not a part of it, we want you to be able to articulate why you want to be here. So that is just something to pay attention to and to think about as you're developing your application. So going into the selection process, we are compiling or organizing a panel, a juried panel of arts professionals who have an understanding of live performance and what is needed to develop work, and they have an understanding of what the community looks like and what Staten Island, you know, or getting a sense of like Snug Harbor. So these are artists that have a relationship to Snug Harbor or have a relationship to the live performance field. Some of them are local, some of them are citywide. We often invite past artists from the program, so alumni of the program, to be a part of the selection process. So that'll be happening in this round as well. And then Snug Harbor staff. And so this combined effort of about 6 individuals looking through each application, measuring it against the criteria, measuring it against, like, you know, making sure that we're representing inclusive artists from across different fields. So, you know, we don't want to select 4 dance artists. You know, there's an opportunity for dance, theater, music, and kind of a more, you know, broad definition of what live performance is. And then we want to make sure that we're, you know, providing space for artists who are underrepresented, who maybe don't get a lot of or haven't historically had a lot of opportunities to share their work within a more formal space. So these are just some of the things that the panel will be considering and reviewing as we look through each application. And we hope to make selections and notify everyone, whether it's a successful project or not, by May 20th. And so that's our goal, is to get the word out and then hopefully announce a press release for the selected artists by early summer. So that's just a sense of the timeline of the selection process. And so now we're going to hop over to the different spaces that we have.
Hi, everyone. So what you're looking at here is one of our historic cottages, Cottage B. We have 2 cottages, like Melissa mentioned, and they're both pretty similar inside. They are, you know, 19th century architecture, but they are modern in terms of having a stove, an oven. There's also a microwave. There are beds inside. In Cottage A, there are 3 bedrooms on the 2nd floor and a bathroom, as well as on the 1st floor. There is a living room, a dining room, and somewhat of a flex space. In each cottage, we actually just replaced a lot of the furniture. So there are brand new couches that pull out to full-size beds. Melissa, if you can just move the slide forward a little bit for me. Yeah, that is one of our brand new couches. And there's these blue chairs on the side that is also brand new. We've kind of given it a little bit of a facelift to make it a little more modern, if you will. In each cottage, there's actually air conditioning in most of the rooms, and the rooms that do not have air conditioners will have a fan. And there is heat in the cottage during the colder months. If you can move forward to the next one, fantastic. And like I mentioned, these are new couches, but they also pull out to full-size beds. So in each cottage, you can potentially accommodate up to about 6 folks. In Cottage A specifically, like I mentioned, there are 3 bedrooms upstairs. 1 bedroom has a single twin-size bed. The other is larger, so it has 2 twin-size beds, and the 3rd bedroom has a full-size bed. If you can move forward just a little bit for me.
Yeah, Shauna, maybe I'll just also add that, so every application is, for an individual artist, but we recognize that artists might be working with a collective or a company or have collaborators. So as Shauna notes how many, rooms we have and how many beds, we will sometimes have like a dance company that is a past artist, like Kinesis Project, or this spring we'll have the Stephen Petronio company in residence. And so as you're thinking about it, like just think about if you have artists that you're working with, there's an opportunity to bring them in to also participate in the residency.
Definitely. Which happens very often with the past program. Folks will bring in their collaborators, and as long as we have their waivers and such, that's completely fine with us. If you can just go forward to the next slide. There we go. And like I said, we have a dining area in each cottage, so there's no going back and forth to kind of share space to figure things out. Everything is contained to its own cottage, unless there's a super large group that happens to need both, but more often than not, each artist that's selected is confined to their own cottage. You can go to the next slide for me. That is one of the bedrooms in Cottage B. I mentioned that Cottage A has 3 bedrooms, but Cottage B actually has 2, one very large bedroom that has 2 twin-size beds. And across the hall from that bedroom would be a second bedroom with a full-size bed inside. And each cottage has a bathroom on the first floor and a bathroom on the second floor. And that is the bedroom in Cottage A. So here we've now gone to our dance center in Building G on the second floor, where we have 3 dance studios. This dance studio is 30 by 40 and has hardwood floors, a ton of natural light. There is heating in the winter and air conditioning in the summer. You can scroll to the next one. That is the dance studio directly across from that one. This one has marley flooring, also a ton of natural light, heating and cooling, but this room also has mirrors, which the other one did not. And it's also 30 by 40. You can scroll to the next one. And this room right here is part of the Newhouse Center. This is gallery number 2. This is right below the dance studios. And we've had artists use this space in the past, either for rehearsal, if the dance studios were booked, or they've actually performed in this space as their stage, if you will. Here we have Lasina Koulibaly, who is a past artist in 2016. He performed right before I got here, but this is one of the community classes that Melissa mentioned earlier, where some artists will have classes for the community to kind of come in and take part in the programming. And this is Lasina performing in the Newhouse Center, but the main hall, which is Building C. This is outside of the main hall for the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art. This is Yoshiko Chuma, who was a past artist in 2015.
And I just want to add, so as you can see, we're just highlighting the different spaces in action. So Yoshiko Chuma was here in 2015, and Yoshiko is a choreographer, but she was working with a interdisciplinary group of dancers alongside musicians. So again, many of the projects will be interdisciplinary in nature, but you want to think about what is as you're thinking through your application, what is the primary discipline that best represents your work for the purposes of this proposal.
Definitely. Here we have Nia Love, who performed in 2016 on the Heritage Farm, but her performance actually spanned over to the Connie Gretz Castle, where she actually rappelled down the wall as part of her performance. So that was really special. And if I remember correctly, that was the first past performance that I was a part of the team in kind of supporting that artist. And this is Peter Zumo, who's a musician. This was actually before I got here, so I missed this performance, but this is also not in the dance studios. As you can see, this is in one of the gallery spaces. And then this is Tatiana Tenenbaum, who was a past artist in 2016. And this took place in one of the galleries while we actually had an exhibition that was on display at the time. And Tatiana has actually come back and has been a part of other past artist performances as well. This is Shinbone Alley, and the Newhouse lawn as well. This is the Kinesis project from 2019 in October, and they actually used not just Shinbone Alley, but the hyphen, which connects building C to building G in the Newhouse Center. And they also used the second floor of building C in the Newhouse Center, which is a space that's not really open to the public. So it was nice to see that activated in a different way. This is Lons Reuter. Lons Reuter's performance was Private Inventory or No Health Insurance. And they performed this in the dance studio. As you can see, there's a lot going on here. There is physical movement, but there was also projections and sound and lots of multidisciplinary things going on with this performance. This is Lily Gold, and this performance was called The Big Nether. I remember working with Lily Gold quite closely, actually. Lily came in at a time when things were kind of just before COVID, if you will, and things were just starting to shut down for the season. She was the last performer for 2019, and I got to know her on the weekends, going through equipment together, and I just thought this is just kind of one of the ways that we support the artists we go through. It's not just, here's the work, here we are, let us know if you have questions. It's more so supporting them if they have questions or troubleshooting things with them that they may not understand in our spaces. This was a performance from Marian Soto. This part of the performance actually took place in the dance center, but something that was kind of unique about Marian Soto's modes performance was that downstairs in the Newhouse Center in galleries 1 and 2, there was pieces left behind. We had projections in each space that kind of went through the modes that she was referring to in her physical dance piece, and that stayed up long after the actual performance finished. So folks were able to come and enjoy it over the next couple of weeks. And here's the app. Okay. Do you want to take this?
Application checklist. So that was just some imagery of different projects in action. I recognize that a lot of them were dance specific projects. We also have a lot of video footage of many of the different projects. And so, we have worked with artists developing a new theater piece or a musical performance. And so we have a lot of dance, archival photos and things like that. So it was just easy to include them here. But please know that this is, more than just a dance focused program. So just kind of recapping everything that we've talked about today. So you want to make sure if you are, considering applying for this, that you get your application in through the Google form by Friday, March 18th, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. This is the deadline. We will not review late submissions. We will also not review incomplete submissions. So please make sure that you fill it out to the best of your ability. Every question, there are long and short answers. The long form answers you have a maximum of 2,000 characters. So, you don't have to use 2,000 characters to explain your work. You want to try to have concise responses, but that's just if you need that space. The maximum is 2,000 characters for the long form answers. And then there's a lot of short form answers asking you, your name, your email, your address and things like that. So short and long form answers, work samples, 2 work samples that best represent your work, your project, your vision. They can be of the work that you're applying for, but they don't have to be. And again, they should highlight the strongest parts of each work sample. You want to highlight the best work or most representative of your work style. And if you have a piece that you're submitting that's longer than 2 minutes, you want to indicate the cue points so that we know as a panel where to start and what to look at. And then there's a voluntary demographics survey. This is optional. You do not have to fill this out, or you do not have to fill out some of the, the individual questions if you do not want to. But this is really a way for us to do, evaluation of how this open call went, and if we were able to reach diverse artists from across New York City, from across the different disciplines, and from across different socioeconomic backgrounds. And so we really want to, it's really great to have that data, and it's not shared out with the panel. So this is not used during the selection process. This is really used to evaluate the process after it's over, and just for us to be able to have a holistic view of, how we were able to get the word out, if we were able to, get a diverse applicant pool, which is the goal. And so we do, encourage and invite you to submit that, but you do not have to. And just a final reminder that we really need this submitted by the deadline. We will not review anything past the deadline that's submitted past the deadline. And I recommend working and saving your work in a separate document before you input it into Google Forms. If you have questions, you're welcome to reach out to Shauna. Shauna's email is on this screen, and we'll share it in the chat. It's also on the open call page on our website. So you're welcome to reach out to us. We're here as a resource. We'll have this video up if you need to refer back to it. But essentially, we just want you to submit the best application that you can, and we're here to guide that process. We are going to answer questions that are here. So first question is, what are the COVID protocols and rules at Snug Harbor on the grounds and in the dance studios and gallery? So at present, we are still requiring masks in any indoor spaces on our grounds. So if you are visiting the campus as a visitor, or you're, staying or rehearsing as a resident, as an artist in residence, you are required to wear a mask when you are indoors. Not in the cottage. If you're in the cottage and you're in your own private space, obviously use your discretion if you have visitors or whatnot, but in any public spaces on campus indoors, you will be required to wear a mask. We also require proof of vaccination from any artists that are applying. So if you're a selected artist, you will have to share proof of vaccination with us, as well as your collaborators. So anyone coming indoors does have to have proof of vaccination. That's all staff, all visitors, and any artists in residence and their collaborators. This is subject to change, but as of right now, that is the policy. For artists that are coming in, you will have to fill out a participant release form, as well as a waiver. And so those are just kind of standard documents to, that are given during the artist agreement, and just really ensure that you understand the safety and the conditions of the space. And in that is the vaccination requirement and mask requirement. We do have extra sort of housekeeping protocols in place. So there are hand sanitizer and masks available in each space. We do cleaning between each rehearsal. So there's a built-in window of time between each rehearsals where housekeeping staff will be cleaning the space. And those are the main requirements right now and protocols right now. We do not have a testing protocol that is really, recommended, but we are not enforcing that. And things are changing every day with COVID-19, and we are a city property. So we are, watching the guidelines for the city and state, and kind of making recommendations and adjustments to the policy based on how things evolve over the next couple of months. So another question. Can you speak more about artistic collaborators? How much information should be included in the application about collaborator work, bio background, etc.? So in the application, there is room if you are part of a collective or you have a dance company or you're part of an artist, company of some kind. There's room on the short form questions to identify the name of the company or the collective. And then there's a question number 9 is to include the mission and bio of the company and collective. So that's where you would kind of, if you have a mission statement or you have a vision for your, collaborative, you would put that into question number 9. And then there is, I believe, a question that number 16, that, to describe who are you collaborating with. So you can list any collaborators that you're inviting into your residency, and to describe what their role will be in the process. And we recognize that you might not have those names at the time of submitting this application, but if you are intending to work with other people, whether they are, working within the same discipline or you're working across different disciplines, you should list and talk about that. What is your vision for that? And there are spaces within the application to describe that. So those are 2 questions that have come up in the Q&A box. I am just checking to see if there are any questions in the chat. So there is a question about the final performance, which we describe as a work in progress. So again, it's not like a final product, but it's a share out of your residency work. And are there specific spaces or limitations regarding seating and capacity? So I'll answer that first. So when we start the process of your residency for the selected projects, we'll give an orientation of all of our spaces, and that's usually a physical site visit. And we will talk through, based on what your project proposal is, we might have a couple of spaces in mind. Our home base for past performances are the dance studios. So that's, kind of like the neutral space where we will be able to accommodate a performance and a Q&A. But if you, at the beginning of the process or like midway through the process, are like, well, you know what, I've been really thinking about the gallery. I really love this one room, or I really love this one space. I really want to work in there. Or I've been rehearsing outside in the mornings and I just really love the healing garden. I want to do my project in there. We will, then start to shape what that share out looks like. The question of space availability is a combination of what's available on our site-wide calendar, because we are a campus that's sharing space with many different, groups and organizations and departments. And so, there might be a space that you're interested in that like physically is not available during that time. And so that might shape where you're able to do your performance. But if there's like something really intrinsic about a particular space that you want to work in, we will do what we can to make that performance happen there. And while it's always like easier or the better to identify that early on in the process, we definitely want to kind of make sure. That's why we schedule communication between our team and the artist throughout the residency, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So that just answers hopefully the first part of your question. Each space on campus has different capacity, and that has changed with COVID. So in the dance studios, we used to be able to accommodate maybe like 50 plus people. We'll squeeze people in and we'll throw pillows on the floor if we need to. We have chairs. But with COVID, we've had to scale back. So with the dance studios, we typically, are looking at no more than maybe 30 or so people. That also depends on how you're planning to use the room, right? If you're a dancer and you need a whole lot of space, that might limit how much space we can accommodate an audience. So these are more like intimate, smaller scale performances. Although if you're doing something outside, there are spaces where we can accommodate, 100 or more people. That's not usually the amount of people we bring in for pass. We tend to accommodate audiences between like 30 and 50 people, although there have been more or less. But that's really going to depend on the particular on-campus venue. And then the other part of that question is, if the final performance could be a work in progress, is there room for a conversation for a higher tech or more polished performance on the grounds at a later time? And the answer to that is always yes. We're always interested in continuing the conversation with the artists that we work with. We don't want this to be like a one and done thing. We've had past alumni come back in many different capacities as, panelists for the selection process, or they've come back to do other kinds of residencies. Delirious Dances is a perfect example of that. Adissa Weeks was here in 2015 or 16 to work on Three Rights, which is a project that spans many different media and works with dancers and artists, and Adissa Weeks has a very big vision for this. And so there are three different parts of the project: Three Rights, Happiness, Liberty, and I think I forget the other one, I'm sorry. But so she's gone on to different residencies across the country to dive into each particular area of this project. And just last year, they came back and they were able to do a residency with their entire company and musicians. And so that wasn't a past residency through this program, but it was like a past alumni residency. And we have the music hall, which is going to be reopening in the next 24 months after a big renovation project. We have outdoor and indoor spaces. We have other projects that we like to bring in artists that are new to us, but also artists that we really want to build a relationship with. So sort of long-winded answer, yes, there are opportunities for more kind of to present work down the line, but some of that always depends on resources and longer term conversations with the artist to make sure that we're all able to kind of grow a relationship around the vision. And so so that's a short answer, but that also doesn't have to be the case. Some artists are really looking for support to get their project to the next phase, and then they want to keep exploring new opportunities. And so we'll always be there to give letters of recommendation and letters of support, or to help as you journey into other conversations with different venues. We're always here to be supportive of that as well. So we do hope for this to be kind of a platform to build relationships and community. And so there's always room for growth beyond the residency. Cool. Are there any other questions? Or Shauna, are there questions that maybe have come up to you that you want to share out?
Yeah, something I realized I forgot to mention earlier was that most of our spaces are ADA accessible, but I do want to note that the cottages are not, since they are, 19th century architecture, but the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art is ADA accessible, so are the dance studios. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. And also, someone emailed me and they mentioned that in the application, we mentioned someone that works primarily in New York City. For us, you don't necessarily have to live in New York City, but you should be able to get here easily, I would say, with your own transportation to facilitate your residency.
Yeah, so one example is Marianne Soto. She is based in Philadelphia, so not too far from New York City, but to get here, required, figuring out the transportation. So again, we do want to see artists that are involved or active or have a stake in the New York City dance and performance fields, but we don't require that you live in New York City. We recognize Staten Island is very close to New Jersey, and there's a bigger ecosystem in the New York City metropolitan area. So kind of artists working in the tri-state, especially if you think it's feasible to come out for a 4-week residency, or and I should also say that doesn't have to be 4 weeks you're living on campus and not doing anything else. We have artists that, of course, are working and have other obligations. And so we really are able to customize what the residency looks like for your needs. So we've had artists that come and they really do want a concentrated, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and their team will stay for the full week. And then on the weekends, maybe you'll go home, or some people like the opposite of that. They want to come in on the weekends and really work on the weekends, or maybe just the nights, or they'll stay for a couple of days and then go back to their home for a couple of other days. So it doesn't have to look like 4 weeks on Snug Harbor's grounds, 24/7, nothing else. We realize that that's not realistic for most people. But you do want to have the ability to spend a considerable amount of time here during that month, and so that's just something to consider as you're developing your project proposal. And I'm getting a question from someone who just joined. Will this discussion be in the archives? Yes, we are planning to post this to YouTube within the next maybe 24, 48 hours. I will do my best to get this up as soon as possible, and we will share it out to the entire list of registrants and post it to our social media and other outlets to go back as a resource. If you were not able to join us, or you're joining us late in the presentation, you'll be able to go back and refer to this. And of course, feel free to email us and reach out if you have specific questions that we did not answer today. So another question, does the music stage performance area have a piano? And so the short answer is we do have a piano in the Newhouse Center. It has wheels, so it is mobile. We are not always able to move. We really, are kind of limited to using it in that space because it takes a lot to move a piano. And that's the only on-campus piano that we'd be able to access for this. We have had artists that bring in keyboards, or if you have a portable keyboard and you want to bring it in, you can set that up. But in terms of a large, on-campus piano, we're kind of limited to what we have. So, Shauna, because you just researched that piano, do you have anything to add about that?
Yeah, the piano that we do have in the Newhouse Center is it's a standard 88 key piano. I don't know the brand because it is actually painted over. It's actually kind of a funky looking piano, but it does work. It's standard height of 48 inches, 56 inches wide. I believe there probably are pictures of it on our website, but if not, and you're really interested in that, I could definitely send you a picture if you reach out via email. And my email is a couple of posts further up in the chat. So feel free to reach out there if you have any further questions. But yeah, that's pretty much the only piano that we have available for use in general. But like Melissa said, folks have brought their own keyboards from time to time, and that's not usually an issue at all.
I see another question. Given the live aspect of the residency, could an installation be considered? I would say the answer to that is it's totally up for consideration. There does need to be a live performance component that is an integral part of this particular opportunity. But as Shauna mentioned earlier, there have been artists that will have a multimedia installation around their work. We've had artists that have done like sound walks, like Rebecca Medina was here last year, and as a part of their project, they had a sound walk where you could go back and access that. So there are different formats of what an installation looks like. We don't have room through this program to accommodate like an exhibition, because we have an exhibition schedule that's already in development for next year. And so that is a little bit separate, but there are certainly ways that we can activate a temporary installation as a part of the project. We've had artists that have drawings as a part of their process that we've hung on the walls in a particular space, and that might stay up for a couple of days or an extended period of time. So it really depends on what your project vision is. But if an installation is a part of that, I would say as long as there's a liveness to the work, that you should feel comfortable submitting the project. Great. All right, I think those might be the only questions. Of course, feel free to email Shauna the chat. Shauna's email is in the chat, and there's also at the bottom of the screen. And it's also available on the Open Call website on Snug Harbor, snug-harbor.org. And please follow us on social media. That's a really great way to stay engaged. So we're at the Newhouse Center on Instagram, and we're at Snug Harbor CCBG on all of the main social media channels. And I think we're going to plug that into the chat. And then once the video is live, you'll be able to find this as a resource for our Snug Harbor YouTube channel. So feel free to click the links and connect with us. And we'll be posting, we do highlight past artist projects, and we'll be doing that as a part of, getting the word out around this. And we hope you'll consider applying. And if if you're not ready to apply this year, we plan to do this as an open call annually. And also, even if you are considering applying, it's always great to spread the word. There's so many artists making such phenomenal, important work across our city. And we really believe strongly that Staten Island needs to have arts and culture. It's integral to our future, and Staten Island does not have a whole lot of infrastructure to support the arts beyond spaces like Snug Harbor. There's a lot of really important community work being done to advocate for expanding arts and culture across the borough. And so we want to kind of make sure we're working with artists from the community, but also artists that want to connect with the community. So we encourage you to just spread the word, and we hope to see your application soon. And please feel free to connect with us if you do have further questions. This has been so great. Someone's asking to repeat the Instagram handles. Take a look at the chat. You can literally click those links right now, but we are at the Newhouse Center on Instagram, and at Snug Harbor CCBG on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I see one final question about improv. I would say if you are an improv artist working in live performance, whether that is dance, music composition, etc., theater, that is part of many people's process. So as long as you can communicate a bold and unique vision for what the container of that work looks like, improv is a part of many artists' working process. So you are welcome to apply as an improv artist, but I would say you want to have a container for your project, and that project should kind of connect back to the priorities of the program and the larger discourse in the community. So hopefully that answers your question. It's going to be really exciting to see everyone's work. And, regardless of whether you submit today or not, please connect with us and keep making work. It is so important right now with everything happening, locally and globally, to use your voice to create a conversation. And I see such compelling work happening in times of crisis, and as we move through this pandemic and everything going on in the world. If you are compelled to create work, keep doing it, and know that we see it, and we respect it and value it, and it's all part of the ways that we can move forward as a community. So thank you so much. And have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.